For centuries, Black people have faced racism, exclusion, and violence simply for the color of their skin. From the horrors of slavery to the struggles of the civil rights movement, and now to the modern fight against police brutality and systemic racism, the cycle of oppression has persisted. But racism isn't just history, it is still happening today. In some places, Black people are still unwelcome, mistreated, and even targeted simply for existing. This is a story of pain and injustice, but also resilience, strength, and the fight for equality. The transatlantic slave trade stole millions from Africa, tearing families apart and forcing Black people into brutal slavery across the Americas. The scars of that era still shape societies today. Even after slavery was abolished, Black communities faced segregation, apartheid, and systemic exclusion. Jim Crow laws in the U.S. legally enforced racial segregation, making Black Americans second-class citizens. South African apartheid separated Black South Africans from basic human rights. Nelson Mandela's 27-year imprisonment became a symbol of the long fight for freedom. The Windrush scandal in the UK saw Black British citizens who had lived there for decades wrongfully detained, denied health care, and even deported. Racism was never just an attitude, it was written into law. Black people continue to be targeted, stereotyped, and attacked in many parts of the world. Police brutality in the U.S. George Floyd's murder in 2020 shocked the world, but it was far from an isolated case. Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, Eric Garner, the list is too long and the pain too deep. Racial profiling in Europe. Studies show that Black people are far more likely to be stopped by police in countries like France and the UK. The refugee crisis. Black migrants and asylum seekers often face harsher treatment in countries across the Middle East and Eastern Europe compared to others. Racism doesn't just exist in one country, it's a global issue. There are places in the world where Black people are openly discriminated against. China. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Black people in Guangzhou were evicted from their homes, denied service, and even banned from restaurants. Middle East. In some Gulf nations, African workers face racial abuse and harsh treatment with limited rights and protections. Eastern Europe. During the 2022 Ukraine war, reports surfaced that Black refugees were denied the same treatment as white refugees, facing barriers at borders. Even in countries with no official segregation laws, social exclusion and racism persist. But Black people have never just been victims of racism, they have fought back, resisted, and led movements for change. Black Lives Matter, a movement that started after the killing of Trayvon Martin in 2012 and grew into a global force after George Floyd's death in 2020. Activists and leaders Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Angela Davis, Nelson Mandela's words still inspire generations today. Global solidarity protests, petitions, and international pressure continues to hold governments accountable. The fight isn't over, and it's not just a Black fight, it's a human fight. Racism is not just a thing of the past. It exists in policies, in stereotypes, in the way Black people are treated across the world. But change is possible. It starts with acknowledging the truth, standing up to injustice, and demanding a world where Black people are not just tolerated but truly accepted and valued. The past has been painful, the present is challenging, but the future is in our hands. For more similar content, kindly hit the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Together, we can raise awareness and fight for a better world.